In today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now, I do post these videos daily, so I highly encourage you to double check the latest video on my channel so that way you get the most up-to-date information. And in terms of the Fed FOMC meeting minutes that came out today, it looks like the next meeting, rate cuts will happen. They just said they have to assess it as the data comes in, so we'll see if it will be 50 or 25 basis points. And before we get to the technical analysis portion, I'm going to go over the economic calendar. And for Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, at 8:30 a.m., we have initial jobless claims. Previously, it was about 227,000. Expectations about 230,000. 9:45 a.m., we have S&P Flash U.S. Service PMI. 9:45 a.m. as well, we have S&P Flash U.S. Manufacturing PMI. And at 10 a.m., we have existing home sales. Now, the market, for the most part, is anticipating, or not anticipating, but waiting for Jerome Powell's speech at 10 a.m. on Friday, August 23, 2024. Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole retreat. So, for the most part, when I looked at the MACD lines and the price actions and so on and so forth, support and resistance levels for the S&P, Nasdaq, and Dow Jones, they seem like they're basically going to be consolidating until the speech, in my opinion. To show you what I mean is, for example, here's the Dow Jones, and it did not break this downward trend resistance line fully. There's obviously false breakouts, but it's been sticking around the whole entire time. Same thing with the Nasdaq. This is QQQ, ETF for Nasdaq, and this is an upward trend resistance line dating back since 2010, just to visually show in case you're new to the channel. Here's since 2010. Doesn't mean the markets wasn't going up. It was going up. It's just basically stuck between underneath the upward trend resistance line, broke out since 2020 to 2022, and then came back underneath and had troubles passing and did not pass, and then passed recently, but then came back underneath, so on and so forth. So that's the significance of this line right about now. And yeah, we had false breakouts. If you zoom in, you can see false breakouts. And plus, arguably, my line's not perfect, you could argue, but at the same time, it's been stuck underneath this zone. And then S&P, basically same thing. I'm looking at ETF SPY. There is a zone right about here horizontally that's a little bit of resistance, and it's been pretty much stuck in the zone the whole entire time. So the market, based off MACD lines, where they're at, resistance levels, and so on and so forth, it looks like, in my opinion, it's more just anticipating waiting for the speech for Jerome Powell. Now, more for the breakdowns in terms of levels, I'm going to go over QQQ, which is an ETF for Nasdaq first, and then I'm going to go through SPY and then Dow Jones. So in terms of level, first, we pretty much, mind you, close at $482.50. So basically, I have to pass the upward trend resistance line, which is a ballpark about 483 and some change, 484. It depends on how long we take to pass it. And then obviously you have to account for false breakouts. But essentially, if we do break out, in my opinion, there is lower levels of resistance. Like, for example, 483, which is basically the same thing. But essentially, we want to get to this zone right about here, horizontal resistance, which is pretty much, in my opinion, about $487 and some change. If I'm correct about the zone, $487 and some change. And then to the downside, potentially, we could be expecting some support. You can see a bunch of consolidation support levels horizontally where we're pretty much dropped at, plus the moving average, about $479 and some change. But ultimately, we could come down to this level of 474 and some change. Not ultimately coming down to this level, I'm just stating that there could be support. We've seen drops a couple times, plus the moving average about 474 and some change. Could we go lower? Can we go higher? Obviously, but in my opinion, I don't expect to go lower than 474 and some change for QQQ. Again, ETF for Nasdaq. And then the upper limit, I don't expect to go higher than 487 and some change. This is specifically before Jerome Powell's speech. For Jerome Powell's speech, it has to be assessed. Again, I do this day by day, so we'll see as we go forward. But the market, based off MACD lines, is kind of potentially more pointing to the upside, mind you. It's just, for now, it just seems like it's in consolidation phase, waiting for the speech for Jerome Powell. Now, for S&P 500, I'm going to be looking at ETF SPY, and essentially, it's, mind you, closed at $560.62. And pretty much on the upper cap, it looks like about 561 and some change for the most part. And for the downside, you could potentially be bouncing off the moving average of $558 and some change. I should cover the upper limit, essentially, for the most part, mind you, is the all-time highs. So for the S&P 500, we are at the all-time highs. You can see right about there. For QQQ, it's not quite there fully yet. But for the Dow Jones, is getting close as well too, mind you. So the all-time highs is pretty much anywhere between $564 and some change, and then $565 and some change if you're counting the pre-market and after hours high. So essentially $565 and some change would be the upper limits. And then to the downside, like I mentioned, the moving average could support, which is 558 and some change, 559 and some change. And then you could be looking at these support levels about 556 and some change, and then 555 and some change, which is about 2 drops right about here and a third drop right about there. Can we go lower? Obviously we can, but I would expect this moving average to be in play personally, about 553 and some change. I don't expect to go lower than, in my opinion, by the way, 555 and some change before Jerome Powell's speech, which is on Friday. There's that. Now for the Dow Jones, essentially same thing, consolidation pretty much on the downward trend resistance line. And by the way, mind you, the significance of this upward trend support level / most likely it was a resistance for the most part, dates back since 2021. So you can see right about here, upward trend resistance line dating back since 2021, multiple touch points, so on and so forth. And then this is where we're at right now. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because this upward trend resistance level could act as support level potentially as we get closer to it. So if we were to drop down, potentially, mind you, close at 40,890 points. And in my opinion, the lowest we could be going in before Jerome Powell's speech would be about 40,450 points, give or take, which collides with the moving average plus the upward trend resistance line that could act as support. We could have potentially saw act as support right about here, but again, the moving average was there, so it's kind of debatable. But either way, and then in terms of downward trend resistance line, we pretty much have to pass a zone, give or take about 40,800 and like basically 40,900 points, give or take for the most part. And then on the upper side, the first zone I would expect to cause issues is about obviously the 41,000 clean, but the 41,200 points. And that's where I'm getting that from is basically horizontally. If you look this way, you can see consolidation resistance plus the spike up resistance right about there. And again, that would be the upper limit before Jerome Powell's speech, unless momentum picks up. For example, we do have NVIDIA earnings coming up sometime next week, and the momentum for NVIDIA stock has been pretty drastic to the upside. Plus, Tesla has been seeing decent movements as well, and these are both mega cap stocks that could pull the market up to the upside if anything happens in terms of catalyst for them, and other mega cap stocks as well too. So there's that. So be aware of that. And that's basically it. Thanks again for watching the video. I appreciate it. If you did like it, found it beneficial, consider dropping a like. It does help out the channel, so thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. And if you want to be notified when I do upload my next videos, consider subscribing, following, so be notified when I do upload them. And thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Take care. God bless and peace.